Hi, I'm Andrew Longhurst, and if you're not sick to death of me already, send cake. Or even better, watch this video, which is about expressive sound design. Yes, indeed. But why? Well, expressive sound design and MPE and polyphonic aftertouch, all of these things are important to people like you and to me. Why to me? Well, because I'm not a very good keyboard player. It's really that simple. So every note I play has to matter. It has to carry a certain gravitas. It's got a lot of heavy lifting to do. So I tend to hold on to notes longer than most, and they have to have movement. They have to articulate. They have to be expressive. So that's the kind of why. And what does that mean for you in this video? Well, we're going to start with just the basic waveform, which one you choose, how you apply a filter to it, putting an envelope on it, that kind of thing. Then we're going to move on to making it respond to velocity and channel aftertouch. Channel aftertouch applies any aftertouch you've routed to all the keys you are holding at the same time, like this. And then from that, we're going to be moving on to polyphonic aftertouch. With polyphonic aftertouch, only the key you apply aftertouch to will be affected, none of the others. So each has independent control of aftertouch, like this. And then lastly, we'll be getting to MPE. MPE controllers, in addition to velocity and polyphonic aftertouch, also offer a range of other expressive controls, in this case, pitch bend per key. And that allows us to do this with chords. And so on with the video. Expressive sound design. But with any sound design, you start off with a very simple waveform. This is essentially on-off keyboard playing, right? This is a set of switches. On, off, right? Nothing terribly exciting about that. So one of the things we can do first of all is have a look at what waveform are we using. Square, which has a lot of harmonic overtones. Let's start with the square. So let's start by making this a bit more interesting. So first of all, we're going to get rid of some of the high frequencies in this. There we go. High frequency is gone. So we've taken the filter down. We're going to add some sort of modulation to this. In the filter section here, we're going to add an envelope. We're going to add envelope 1 to this. So so this is adding positive from a center point. It's adding to whatever we've got. And if I went the other way, so we're going to add. And we're going to go to the envelope and we're going to have a look at this. So this is envelope 1. These three envelopes, envelope 1, 2, and 3, are freely assignable. So we're going to, first of all, change the level just by pulling down the sustain level. And you can hear it's got a little blip at the front, so we're just going to add a little bit of decay to that. Going to add a little bit of attack, so it takes longer to come in. And then we're going to have it decay. So that started shaping the sound. This is just with one oscillator. So the other thing we can do here is we can make it respond to velocity. So if we increase the level of the velocity sensitivity for levels, so you can hear the harder I'm hitting it, the brighter it gets. And then I'm going to also change the time. So now what we have, and do you notice how I'm wobbling my finger? I tend to do that. I'll show you why. Because in addition to shaping the sound with an envelope, I'm now going to add pressure or aftertouch. Now this is set up like a channel aftertouch instrument, like the DX7. So if I add pressure, give it a positive amount, and go, I'm going to add even more. And that's kind of, that's kind of okay. It's certainly at the start of expression, and we could add some pitch bend to that. So if we come over here to mod, we can add, as a source, we can have the keyboard mod wheel. We can have that routed through, let's say, LFO1, triangle wave. And then the destination, we can make it either any one of these oscillators or all of the oscillators. Let's just make it all of the oscillators. Let's make it fine. And you can see on the left here, the mod wheel here. So I'm just going to leave the mod wheel at full and then start adding in. And I'm going to speed that up. So if we come to LFO1, so we can now So I've already got an expressive instrument right here. So rather than making the mod wheel add the LFO, we're going to change that and make that aftertouch. So if we come to keyboard, aftertouch, and we're going to, here we go. It's kind of cool, you're starting there. Add some effects in, which we'll do quickly. Let's just add a huge, great reverb. That'll do. Isn't that beautiful? Some expressive design. We're going to make this even more expressive. So what we're going to do is change this so that it's now acting like a polyphonic aftertouch controller. So now we're in polyphonic aftertouch mode. We can add things like the filter and the vibrato to each key rather than to the whole thing. So if we hold down a chord, so you can see it's not affecting the whole chord, just the notes I play. What I'm going to do now is just thicken it up a bit, because it's a bit of a, it's nice enough, but I'm going to add in a second oscillator. So why don't I do that? You can see I've got another square oscillator. I've already selected this. So I'm going to bring the level up on this. So I can thicken it by detuning slightly. or I can thicken it by tuning it to a fifth above. And that's kind of okay. But maybe I don't want to hear it all the time, so what I'm also going to do here is I'm going to turn this down here, turn down the oscillator, the fifth, and then I'm going to add in pressure as a controller to give me some expression that will allow me to add that in on Aftertouch. Now, I don't happen to much like the Aftertouch LFO at the moment, so I'm going to get rid of that, but I quite like the... So that's more interesting, but I still want to thicken it up some more, so I'm going to add oscillator 3 into this mix as well. So... That's kind of an interesting, lovely thing. So what I'm going to do now, I haven't even used the envelope, the volume envelope, so let's have a quick look at that. So I'm going to add velocity to this as well. So I'm going to make this quieter. And I'm also going to make these at the speed at which the attack, decay, sustain come in, transition, dependent also on the velocity. And I think what I'm going to do as well is just make this a little wider, because it's feeling like it's not particularly wide. So what I'm going to do is now switch on the effects again. So let's go to layer 1, and we're going to add some, maybe some chorusing and stuff, just to thicken it up. So we're going to add a digital delay. Take it down to about 16, 17 milliseconds. Slow down the modulation rate and add then we're going to add a proper delay. Maybe we'll sync it up and put in a 8th dotted, again ping pong, and we're going to add globally this reverb, which is rather lovely. So and do you know what? That fifth isn't working for me quite as well as I would like, so I'm going to come back to that, and I'm going to select this and just make it an octave above rather than a fifth. So I'm going to take that down and I'm just going to shift it up an octave. Here we go. There you've seen an awful lot of expressive design. So we've got towards the end of this video, and now's the time to just dig in a little bit to expressive sound design using MPE. Now, I happen to be using the Osmose CE. I'm just going to start off with a sound that I'm going to play, a sound that I've designed. I've been watching a lot of Danish TV where there is a certain sonic signature. It tends not to be madly expansive and reverbs and delays and God knows what else. It tends to be very, very constrained, kind of inner mind stuff. So this particular preset has been designed with exactly that in mind, and because it's MPE, I have the sort of the equivalent of Aftertouch, Y pressure. More importantly, I'm using MPE X to change individual notes' pitch. So I call this preset Danish Crime. I wonder why. So how's this all working? What's going on here that's using MPE? Well, first of all, we have MPE associated to two different controls here, or two different destinations. So I'm going to take off the filter one, because you can hear the filter happening, which is mostly happening in envelope 1. You can see it. Okay, so let's just ignore that for the moment. But if we come back to here, you'll see I've also got MPEY, or pressure, set to modulate the filter in modulator 2 here in the filter section. So I'm going to switch that off. And now if I apply Aftertouch, you can hear that harmonic ring. Sounds like a filter. It's not. What it is oscillator 2 is synced to oscillator 1, and I'm changing the pitch of oscillator 2 using MPE Y. As I press down, it's changing the pitch. If I unsync, you can hear exactly what it's doing. As soon as I put it into sync, and if I add back in MPEY as a filter control, it becomes exaggerated and also sweeps the filter. So that's the first control, the first major control. Secondly, the mod wheel is introducing filter modulation using LFO3. But I'm also adding MPEY Aftertouch, essentially pressure. I'm using that to increase the rate of LFO3 as well. So as I press down, so pressure is doing quite a lot of heavy lifting. You could do an awful lot of this with Poly Aftertouch. What you can't do though with Poly Aftertouch is this next thing. We've got MPE X, which is side-to-side lateral movement on keys. If I set it to none, it does nothing. If I set it to MPE X, then suddenly I have now I've set this for a semitone down, a single semitone, and I can set it for less or more depending on the settings here. So in the center it does nothing. Full up, it acts so that as I go down it pitches down, as I go up it pitches up, or I can use it the other way. So as I move left, go down, it actually, the pitch raises, and vice versa, which is kind of a weird thing, but it's useful. That sense of unease. So the final part of this is, by bringing all these things together, you end up with a performance piece that allows you to do things like this. Then adding in the effects. Now, I happen to be using the Osmose CE. Others will have different controllers, or they may have this. The presets I've designed for the ESQ-1 happen to have been designed using this, and so will work pretty much straight away, straight out the box for anyone using an Osmose CE. For people using other instruments or other controllers, such as the Linstrument, the Roly, the MPC, the Haken Audio Continuum, each of those has different control surfaces and different parameters that they take advantage of. So you will get a different experience, but by changing either the settings on your controller or jumping into this patch or any of the patches that I've created or anyone else has created for MPE, you'll be able to adjust these to suit your particular controller, or at least use it as a jumping off point to design your own sounds. It is worth noting that for anyone that has MPE, there's a whole section about this in the ESQ-1 user manual. It's definitely worth reading, and you may get some more mileage out of studying that and seeing what you can do.